Okay, welcome to another movie review stream. My name is Mark McPherson, film critic for movieswithmark.com, as well as TwinCitiesGeek.com and FilmInquiry.com. And we are almost done with June right now. We're right in the heart of the bigger films will obviously be coming out in July, but in the middle of June, we do have some big films to cover, namely a few that came out this weekend, including 28 Years Later, the latest zombie film from director Danny Boyle and screenwriter Alex Garland returning to the series. We'll also be covering Pixar's new animated film, Elio, which also came out this weekend. The first original that Pixar has done since Elementals about 2 years ago. So fresh new original straight from Pixar, so we'll get to covering that, and I'll also be talking about, since we're about halfway through the year, might as well talk about the best movies of the year thus far. It's too soon to tell for a few, but there are a few worth noting that I would like to talk about. So we will get to that, but before we start the reviews here, if you'd like to catch up with more reviews, if you want to catch up with the latest movie reviews, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so that you're kept up to the date on the latest movies. I also have a Patreon listed below in which you can help support not only the stream, but also my movie history books, as well as get a copy of them. There we go. So let's get the right credits up here, and we'll get straight into talking about 28 Years Later. Let me get my notes up here, and we will jump right into it. Okay, here we go with 28 Years Later in 3, 2, 1. So 28 Years Later is the sequel to 28 Weeks Later and 28 Days Later, with director Danny Boyle and screenwriter Alex Garland returning to this zombie saga. And I do find it very fascinating that, that Danny Boyle returns to this zombie film and actually has some fresh ideas for where he wants to take it. But even more than that, I think I love the fact that both Boyle and Garland, they've grown a lot since 28 Weeks Later. 28 Days Later. They've grown a lot since then. They've developed more as filmmakers and screenwriters. They've taken some different paths here. And when they return to, this film about, this film saga about zombies that have overtaken the earth with the rage virus, they actually find something more to explore beyond just how many cool kills and how many different types of zombies you can have. Because, to their credit, they do a fine job of that too. That there's some intense filmmaking here, lots of great blood and guts and gore that goes over the top, but there's also a lot of beauty and a lot to care about with the characters, and a very heartfelt story, I think, that keeps its thematic focus fairly strong for a film that had some wild little detours that it goes with the zombies. It does still have a story that's very interesting and with characters worth caring about. That the zombies almost become a little bit of of an afterthought. I don't say that to say they're not a threat, they are, but they're kind of used more ingredients for a greater tale about existentialism and growing up, instead of just being the big draw of how can we kill as many as we can, what's the cure for them, none of that. This is more or less a film about growing up and inheriting the problems of the past year. Because at the heart of this film, we're following the tween character of Spike, played by Alfie Williams. And as the title implies, it's been about 28 years since the zombie outbreak started, and Spike has, of course, grown up entirely in a world where, he's on this little Scottish island that's kind of been, within the UK's quarantine zone. They basically they're cut off from the rest of the world here. So Spike is only kind of known this village life of defending from zombies, hunting zombies, and he learns all about it from his father, Jamie, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. But his dad isn't really capable of teaching him much about being a man, because he's kind of grown up with this mindset of just surviving a zombie apocalypse and kind of just, throwing caution to the wind when it comes to, being a good person, or, having, better ideas and empathy for others in the world. Just, it really shows just how limited, that how much how much like of a father Jamie can truly be when he has such limitations. The same can be said of, well, I mean, the same can't be said, but of Ilsa, played by Jodie Comer, who's Spike's mother, and she can't really do much of anything because she is basically dying and has mental lapses and can not really be there for Spike and can't really offer him up much guidance besides just, appealing to, his sympathies and just, trying to express like a few more of her memories before the world went to shit, and just trying to like recover her sanity in such a decaying world. So Spike really kind of has to like grow up on the fly here and just kind of try to learn things and cut off the bad stuff that the adults are teaching him here, which is like, it's a fascinating angle. Not to mention the fact that there are other adults that he comes into contact with in his adventures, where he ventures off of the island, and it's kind of like this rite of passage where you have to go off the island, you have to hunt zombies and try to like scrounge for resources. And even though Spike accepts it, he kind of realizes that no, that might not be enough, and I kind of have to be independent. Like, I have to do this on my own. Like, I can't look to my dad for help. Like, I can't look to my mom for help. I just have to try to find a way to survive on my own and try to, be a better person and make a better world than what was left for me by these older adults. But also he has these ideas challenged. Like at one point he runs into Eric, a soldier who is from outside the quarantine zone, so he has very much a different modern perception where it kind of reveals like, yeah, even if you didn't live in like this kind of like little village setting, you could still be an asshole. And you could still like teach kids the wrong things. And, thankfully Spike kind of learns that the hard way with how Eric is much more violent and aggressive, and he can't really trust him all that much, despite being a pretty useful ally amid like the zombie apocalypse. But the wisest words obviously come from this mysterious Dr. Kelson, played by Ralph Fiennes. And I think, like, this is probably the most interesting character in the film, just because Fiennes plays this character who has kind of gotten used to the zombie apocalypse, more or less. I think the more accurate description of him might be he's gotten used to the idea of death. So he's kind of learned how to live in the zombie apocalypse and deal with dead bodies and hordes of the undead in a kind of way where he's kind of grown like content with death. And he teaches these lessons to Spike fairly well about how, there are some cases where you might not be able to save somebody even if you try as hard as you can. And when people do die, you have to find a way to deal with it. And mind you, he will say all this while he's like basically covered in shit and standing next to like this mountain of skulls that he's made. And he's very like, it's surprising like how like, very thoughtful and gentle he is, but also like very comical with like how he makes like kind of like little jokes here and there, like little jokes about Shakespeare, and while also teaching Latin. And I think like that character is like the perfect embodiment of what makes 28 years later such an impressive film, is because it's able to try out so much and it feels like a more complete being of a film rather than just being a simplistic like zombie apocalypse survival film. Like I said, to the film's credit, Danny Boyle does a great job with his direction here. The scenes where Spike and his father are hunting the zombies, they're intense. Like the camera will whip around them and like these little bit of like 360 shots. There's quick cutting that goes between like night vision and people being beheaded, and very fast and quick cuts of like they introduce like these giant zombies called the Alphas, who are apparently not only bigger and stronger but also faster, and they can take so many hits and just keep running right after you. Not to mention they like pretty much all the zombies here, because it's been like many years since the zombie apocalypse started, none of them have clothes, so all the zombies here are just naked. And of course they make an obvious joke here that when the Alpha's running around, he's got a giant dick that's swinging around here. Not to mention like there's other weirder stuff like here, like there's a zombie birth from a pregnant zombie, which a little bit questionable, like how long that woman was carrying the baby, and could, I don't want to get into the specifics of it, but just like the sight of it, the fact that Danny Boyle was willing to go there with like the weirdness of that scenario. I think is wonderful because like that stuff is cool and gritty, but then you also have these very like lush moments of the cinematography of like the beautiful wilderness they showcase here, and then these very emotionally moving moments, especially with like Spike's mother, where there's this very touching moment where she recognizes this old monument in the distance, and she briefly loses her mind and thinks back to her father and remembers his specific words about perceptions of time, and how when you look at something that has stood for like decades and centuries, you just think back to how long that's been there and how many people have experienced it. And it's kind of this weirdly transcendent moment amid, trying to outrun zombies and, fighting for your life when people around you are getting decapitated and deceiving you and just not finding yourself being able to trust anybody. So there are quite a few thematic elements explored here, but I do like the fact that it mostly just kind of settles on legacy and death, as trying to, stress how, when you grow up in such a decaying environment, it's hard to find hope, and you kind of just have to like manufacture it yourself to try to, find your way into like, the next stage of your life and try to make the world better. That, you might not be able to inherit everything from your parents. There has to be a moment where you realize, no, they can't teach me everything. I've got to move on. I've got to grow up. So there are some like wild tonal shifts in this film, and I think for a lot of people that's probably going to be a little bit of a deal breaker here, especially when you go from like the first half of the film being very like very like quickly edited and intensely shot with all the brutality and the action and the violence, and then you get to the second half and it's kind of like the zombies are almost kind of like background at this point, to just like focus more specifically on Spike's emotional journey and learning to accept death. That it kind of slows down in the pacing, but I think it's fairly profound in what Boyle and Garland are trying to explore here, and give this film more of a thematic edge instead of just all like the gruesome gore and violence. But then, and I don't want to spoil it here, but the ending of this film also just immediately has a tonal whiplash so fast that your neck will crack. Just because like it goes from like this very like dark and depressing view of how a kid has to move on in the apocalypse, so it kind of like takes a shift from like being like The Road into like almost like the comical aspects of something like Dead Alive, and it just like goes like really quick like that, and you're just like, what is going on? We just went from like this very touching and emotional moment to like this very giddy and gruesome scene of like all these people rampaging around destroying zombies. And I'm like, you know what? I got to applaud Boyle for trying stuff like that. I love the fact that he's willing to take these wild swings and just throw all this stuff into like this film. And I know like that's probably going to piss off some people who probably just wanted to come into this film and just see some zombie action and violence. And they might like the film for like the first half, but if you're willing to stick with it, especially if you realize that, there's only so many times you can see like zombies getting gored, and, naked zombies and pregnant zombies having birth, and, deer being ripped apart. You can only see that so many times before it just kind of desensitizes you and just kind of like, okay, cool effects, but is there anything else to this? Because there's something more to explore here. And thankfully there is with 28 years later. They actually find some more material here and make you care about these characters while also just making some wild and weird choices, which is just great. I love that. I can't help but imagine that if Boyle and Garland didn't have, their pedigree, they wouldn't be able to make this type of film. They would probably get notes back saying, you can't do this, you need to maintain this type of tone, you need to add more zombie action and violence here, or you need to tone down the violence, or you can't show this much nudity. And they were just like, no, we're doing this. We're throwing everything at the screen that we want. We're exploring everything we want. We're shooting the way we want. We can, like, so many different like camera tricks here and just the brilliant editing. It's just it's a film that feels alive. It's a film that feels like it's willing to take chances, and it gives a reason to come back to like this, 28 later zombie saga. So, for as much time has passed here, I think Danny Boyle returns to 28 blank later with more ideas. So yeah, there's a reason to bring this film saga back from the dead, especially when Boyle and Garland have kind of made something much more fascinating to watch beyond just the cool zombie kills. Cool as they may be, and as abundant as they are in this film, there is more to it. There's brains as well as blood and guts in this film, which I absolutely love. So, 28 years later is currently playing in theaters this weekend. I hope it does well, because I love the fact that Danny Boyle has that room to experiment with a film like this, especially a big mainstream film like that, All right, so next film. Let me get the notes up here. We'll get to talking about Elio, latest film from Pixar. With about 3 directors and 3 screenwriters. Will it be good? Well, let's see. Clear my throat there. All right. So here we go with Elio in 3, 2, 1. So Elio is the latest animated film from Pixar, an original film from Pixar. And this film, I think a lot of people would probably describe it as kind of like The Last Starfighter. And I would, in terms of like the general story, but I would preface it by saying, yeah, it's like The Last Starfighter, but if it were more mature and more heartfelt, but also willing to be more horrific, if that makes sense. So, much like The Last Starfighter, it's about, someone who's young and idealistic, who wants to believe that there's more for him out there rather than just the simplistic life that they have on Earth, and that they will be whisked away to another galaxy to interact with different types of aliens and make all their sci-fi dreams come true. Elio's very much the same way, but it's far more intelligent and more engaging with how it frames its character, and I think that's just because the central character of Elio, played by Jonas, let's see if I can pronounce his name, Jonas Kribliab. I'm probably screwing that up, but Elio he's an enduring character. You kind of like him just because he's endured, the loss of his parents, but he has a fascination with NASA and with science, and the belief that that the Voyager spacecraft is going to find something out there, that there must be some alien life out there, because we've been searching for so long. Surely some aliens will come by sooner or later. So Elio basically, while being raised by his busy aunt Olga, voiced by Zoe Saldana, he spends his entire time just awaiting alien arrival. He tracks down where's the best spot to look for them. Tries to track signals through ham radios. Basically, tries to find any way to make contact with alien life so that he can feel, basically, that he can start his life over, more or less. That he can find somebody else he can connect with for being so much of an outsider. And thankfully, one day, there is an alien signal that is picked up, and Elio gets a chance to make first contact. And he is able to contact the aliens, and when they finally do arrive, they manage to, abduct him and bring them to their world. And he ends up in this collective of all these other aliens in what's called the Communiverse. And it's basically a collective of basically alien scientists that want to understand more about the world and experiments and the meaning of life, and just explore all this stuff while, just having fun. which is just great. I love the fact that when Elio's abducted, he doesn't have like this moment of like terror and fear. There's excitement. There's just like this, yes, this is finally happening, and all his dreams are coming true. He gets to hang out with all these fun different creatures, and they showcase this technology of altering gravity and making different stuff with matter and cloning, and offering up the meaning of life if Elio wants to look it up. He doesn't because there's so much other cool stuff to do. Thankfully, though, there is conflict in the film. He does have to kind of prove himself that he can be a member of this council, and the best way that he can do that is by standing up to this warlord bully called Lord Grygon, voiced by Brad Garrett. And I love the fact that, Brad Garrett is kind of doing what he always does best here, which is just, having a growly, villain voice, and he's perfect here. He's this very kind of worm creature who has like a mech suit in this whole other, with this whole race that's just, it's worms and mech suits. And Elio is not, of course, Elio is not going to be able to defeat this guy with, muscle and firepower, not just because he doesn't have it, but because, it seems, Grygon seems a little bit too intimidating. Thankfully, though, Elio can find a way to connect with the warlord's son of Glorden, voiced by Remy Edgerly, and the two of them, Elio and Glorden have this instant connection. Like, they're both outsiders. They both feel like they're devalued by their parents, so they immediately connect, and they connect so quickly that they also get to have a lot of time just having fun with each other and connecting on a level where they can just drink all night and throw up and have fun, basically have fun in this alien environment, which I love. I love the fact that this film approaches the idea that if there is alien life out there, it's not just going to be aliens that want to blow us up, or just extraterrestrials who are just going to innocently eat our candy and then leave. Here are some actual intelligent creatures who have greater ideas and bigger perceptions about our universe and how we connect with one another, which of course it's the fairly predictable thesis of this film, is just that yes, Elio is going to find a way to connect with his aunt because they don't see eye to eye, because Elio's an outsider and Olga's overworked and she can't find a way to parent. So, of course, they are going to form that connection. But the fact that they are able to form that bond over a very clever sequence where they have to try to find their way off Earth in a spaceship while avoiding a debris field while relying on grid coordinates and radio signals, it's just brilliant. Because this film does wear on its sleeve that, yes, it has a love of science. It's very much in love with the science of kind of with space travel and radio signals, and but I think the fact that there is that love there, it makes it that much more intelligent and exciting on that level, because then you care about these characters. If they're smart enough to figure out how to make it off Earth and how starships might work, then you're kind of like, oh, okay, these people kind of seem like they know what they're doing, and I want them to kind of, not only succeed, but, become better people as the film goes along. And that it makes you root for them, and it makes the addition of there are some audio inclusion of Carl Sagan talks, and I think the fact that there is that love of science, it makes Carl Sagan's words here not just feel decorative. It feels like there actually is a purpose for them in this film that connect better with the characters and the central theme. So not a real surprise here. Pixar, I think, always does best when they're trying to create entirely new worlds here. I love the world that they made with Elemental, and I do love the world that they made with the Communiverse, which is just, dazzling color and just, all these different, I love the little council chamber with all these little clamshells. I love the, just the vibrancy, and even the Lord Grygon's ship with its coldness and its lava pits and stuff like that, and all these webs that they have for these worm-like creatures. All these great little details, and it's fun to explore this world, and just fun to hang out in it with all these characters. I think it's just that's the sign of like a great animated world, is if you don't really care that the characters are just hanging out. That being said, I do love how zippy the film is, that it does make room to have that fun. It doesn't waste a lot of time with exposition. It does like go very very fast through getting Elio into this like alien environment. Like it doesn't happen immediately, but it is doled out pretty quickly here. It kind of has the same pacing of like Disney's Meet the Robinsons, where they just, take this character, pluck him out, just like, boom, here we are. Okay, here's what we do. Bam, 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 bam. And just get to the fun stuff as quickly as possible. And I think having that, like I said, having that quickly allows for more fun. And it was great to just, hang out with these characters and watch them endure. And also, just watching characters who have like a better drive for connection and wanting to learn more. Like, I love the fact that when Elio, kind of almost like reluctantly accepts this job of trying to like, negotiate peace with Lord Grigon, he kind of like studies up on it. He's like, oh, I'm a bit over my head. What am I going to do? Well, I accepted this job, so I might as well hit the books. I'll try to like look up, how to approach conflict, what's the best route to approach it from. So I love the fact that Elio is not only like plucky and willing to try stuff, but also just smart enough to, look stuff up and try to find that connection with other people. So yeah, this is very much a much more intelligent Pixar film in terms of its ambition and its characters and its connection, while also just looking dazzling. Like, it's fun to just hang out in this very colorful world here. So yeah, for a Pixar original film, this is a pretty damn good film with a lot of heart and a lot of brains to it that just makes you care about these characters. And just like I said, it's a much more mature version of The Last Starfighter, but also I had to come back to this point here. There are some horror elements to this film because the one thing that I say relates closest to The Last Starfighter is they rely on a clone of Elio to be placed on Earth so that Elio doesn't have to worry about being missing. And of course, if you've watched The Last Starfighter, the creepiest part of that film, at least for me, was how they formed the clone. Because like the clone is kind of like malformed at some points, and it looks like creepy the way it's like not quite a complete human being here. And I have to imagine like the Pixar people who worked on this film kind of looked at that aspect and said, oh, we can make this way creepier. Like, there are some creepy elements of like how Elio's clone, how his hair moves, how he like cuts off body parts, how he melts in one scene where it's got like deep red lighting, and it looks straight out of a horror film. So they just kind of like looked at The Last Starfighter and said, oh, we can make this way more horrific and also make it just fun. So I love the fact that they're willing to experiment with sci-fi and horror. Like, there's a few nods to like Alien in there as well. So it's very much a film that's just, it has fun with its sci-fi setting while giving it brains and heart. So yeah, for being one of Pixar's few originals in the past few years, this was a lot of fun. It was beautiful, it was heartfelt, and it was very smart characters that are worth hanging out with. So yeah, I love when Pixar makes movies. I love when Pixar makes movies like these, and I wish that they would make more of them. So I hope that Elio does well, because I love when Pixar makes movies like this. So Elio will be playing in theaters this weekend. And I'm hoping it does well. I'm hoping it does well as like a good alternative to Lilo and Stitch, because that was just, there's no other family entertainment out. So like that film is, I think it's closing in on like $1 billion right now. So I hope that Elio is Pixar's hit this year, because that would signal to Disney, oh yeah, look, if you make original films that explore new worlds, you can, people will come and see that. So make more of those films. Like, because it didn't really happen with Elemental on like on an immediate level, because like the film did make money, but it was kind of more like a slow sleeper success, because it did make money, but only progressively over the summer, because there wasn't family alternatives. So my hope is that even though there are some like PG-13 family alternatives coming up in July, obviously with like Superman and the Fantastic Four movie, hopefully more families will gravitate towards this film, because I really hope it does well. All right, let's go to the chat here. So, KJ Zana says, how does it feel knowing that Jaws is now 50 years old and the Blues Brothers is now 45 years old? Well, thankfully, I'm none of those ages, so it does make me feel old. But yeah, it's pretty cool that, you know, these films have been around for so long and that a lot of people take note of them. But I didn't realize I mean, obviously it would make sense if I looked up the year, but yeah, when realizing how time works, Blues Brothers is 45 years old. I mean, I knew Jaws was like, yeah, because, you know, 1975, the biggest film of that year, so obviously that sticks out. But yeah, 50 years old, wow. It surprises you how old films make you feel. In fact, I think I actually have, do I have it behind me here? I have the Jaws Blu-ray, and it's a, I'm not seeing it here. I'm sure I have it here. But I do remember I bought the anniversary set of Jaws on Blu-ray, and I think that was, oh god, what was that? I think that Blu-ray came out in like, I think it had to have been like the was it like the 40th anniversary? I think, because that was 20. No, it wasn't. It was the 35th anniversary. So yeah, I got the Blu-ray from like 2010 that came out. The 35th year anniversary. Yes, yeah, it's wild how time works like that. That's like the funny thing too, is like if sometimes you can if you want to like make people feel really old, just list a film that came out during their childhood and say like, oh, you know, hey, do you remember Batman Returns and how that film came out over 35 years ago? It's like, wait, I saw The Dark Knight in the theater. When did that come out? Oh god. Want me to tell you when Space Jam came out? No, I don't. Oh, it's tragic, but also funny. So, all right. What else was I going to talk about? Oh yes, the year in review about the year's best film. So, I'll be honest. It's I haven't been keeping. I haven't been like as up on keeping as track of the many big films this year. I usually, you know, plow through it at the end of the year when I get like the FYC screeners and all that. But in terms of like the best films this year, I think there are a few clear front runners here. I think probably my top favorite film this year, and I think it is for a lot of people, without much surprise, is Ryan Coogler's Sinners. Sinners has just been there's so much to love in that film. Just the way it's shot, its densely thematic approach to racism and the communal experience and the co-opting of culture, and the way that like kind of like evil forces seek to like take away identity and being, just like the wonderful way it infuses music into it all. Like obviously Sinners is easily one of my favorite films of the year, and I highly suspect it's probably going to end up on my top 10 list. Like right now it's number 1, but I mean like we're halfway through the year. We usually don't get like the much greater films until like the second half, but I think it's safe to say Sinners is probably going to be up there. Another film that I think might get lost in the shuffle, so I do want to highlight it here, is Steven Soderbergh's Black Bag, which it's just such a tight, well-written, perfectly executed, and just sexy spy thriller. I mean, oh my god, just, you know, Cate Blanchett and just Michael Fassbender just looking so goddamn sexy as like this spy couple who work together and suspect each other, but because they're so suspicious of each other and they keep tabs secretly, they're almost kind of like perfect for each other and how they deceive each other and just kind of love it. Practically getting off on it in the film as they try to find a rat in their organization. Just fantastic filmmaking there, very tightly edited, nice crisp dialogue, and just so sexy to look at. So unbelievably, I love a good sexy thriller like that, and we need more of those films. And Soderbergh once again delivers. Like, you know, he does really good crime thrillers that know how to have fun and just play with the medium. I know that sometimes documentaries kind of find their way off my list, so I think it is a good time to recommend a few here. One of my favorite documentaries so far this year was Sly Lives. aka the Burden of Black Brilliance, which was a documentary by Questlove all about the history of Sly Stone and his band, the Family Stone, which is actually very poignant to recommend now since Sly Stone just recently died. So now is a great time to just, catch up on his legacy and hear all about, why his music was so impactful on just, not just the Black community, but music in general. So you get a lot of great Black artists who appear in this film who talk how much they love Sly Stone's music, not just for the historical aspects and kind of like the technical ways in which he composed his music, but also just how they love the melody of it all and how they just, how there's like a certain like rhythm that they pick up on it. And they explain it in a way where it's just like, on an internal level, you can understand where the appeal is for that music and what made Sly Stone so brilliant. So you see all that within how he's describing this film, and just wonderfully edited. Like Questlove previously directed another documentary called Summer of Soul, which I absolutely loved from a few years back, and he once again delivers with Sly Lives. So if you really love music documentaries, and even if you don't really love music documentaries, I would say yes, watch Sly Lives as well, because Questlove finds a way to get you more ingrained with this world and make you care about, everything that goes into making really great music. So yeah, it's a fantastic documentary. Another good documentary, which I think might appeal more to the gamer crowd here, is Grand Theft Hamlet. So this is a documentary filmed entirely within Grand Theft Auto Online, which documents the production of Grand Theft Auto's first production of Hamlet, done entirely within the game, which was born out of the pandemic, where these two out-of-work actors found themselves spending a lot of time in Grand Theft Auto and decided just, hey, you know what? We can't find work. We can't perform on the stage. Why don't we just use this virtual environment to stage our own production of Hamlet? We'll gather together some actors, and we'll make this very, cinematic version of Hamlet that you can watch in Grand Theft Auto. And I think just that film really worked for me, just because it was filmed during 2021, when a lot of us were still locked down in the pandemic, and it's just, for being trapped in that digital space, being able to relate to that and just have that kind of desperation to want to pull something creative off, just it really got to me. I almost found myself tearing up at how well that film captured that anxiety and the earnestness that comes with feeling that you're trapped in this digital environment and trying to make something great out of it as well. It worked for me. It really, really did. That film is actually currently playing on Mubi if you want to watch it. And then there are a few other films that I want to mention here, like Broken Rage is a great Takashi Miike film. Not Takashi Miike. Why did I say that? God, that's so stupid. Why did I say that? God, it's not Takashi Miike. It's Beat Takeshi. Beat Takeshi did a great job with Broken Rage by toying with the two types of films he usually makes, which is gritty Yakuza thrillers and just meta comedies and just flat out silly comedies. And he does both in Broken Rage by staging the first half of his film as a straight Yakuza film, and then the second half as the same story but as a ridiculous comedy. So I love that kind of duality, and Takeshi usually kind of puts some of that into his works. He's made a few meta films about his career, so this isn't really all that new for him, but it's still kind of fun to just watch him experiment. And then there's a few genre films that worked really well this year. Ballerina was just fun to see another John Wick ballet of action. Materialists was another great attempt from Celine Song to evoke unconventional romantic drama and explore the internal pressures that come with dating in the modern age. Materialists was just brilliant on that level. And then just Predator Killer of Killers was just fun. It's just fun to have, the Predator alien go around to different parts of the world and time periods and pit people against each other. Just fun, great, bloody action. And then another horror film recommendation is Final Destination Bloodlines. I was surprised how refreshing that film that film felt for making me care about those characters so much and providing a few more twists on the mystery that, kind of offered up a reason to return to the Final Destination films. The same goes for 28 years later. I was surprised how much I liked Danny Boyle's film. So yeah, it's a pretty good year for horror this year, and I'm looking forward to see what else we got. There are a few horror films I haven't caught up with yet. Like, I haven't seen Presence yet, which I do want to catch up on. I have heard it's another great one from Soderbergh, and there's also Bring Her Back. I do want to see that as well. And then we have a few bigger films coming out from directors this year. Like Guillermo del Toro is finally going to release his Frankenstein film. We got another Rian Johnson mystery with his Benoit Blanc character. And yeah, just another Ari Aster film. I can't wait for it. And it looks very Divergent for Ari Aster. So excited for that as well. And, even some of the big budget films this year I'm excited for, like, I love Superman, and the fact that James Gunn is working on it makes me so excited. And even Fantastic Four looks pretty cool for how it kind of has this almost kind of like idiosyncratic way that it's being shot here, while just feeling refreshing for a Marvel film. So yeah, there's some superhero films coming out next month that I'm actually really excited for, while there's still more to look forward to this fall. So yeah, the year so far, not too bad. Like Sinners, I imagine, is probably going to end up at the top of my list come the end of the year. So we will just have to see how that pans out here. So let's do a quick recap of the movies I reviewed on today's stream. I only reviewed 2, but that's just been a little busy lately. So I reviewed 28 Years Later, Danny Boyle and Alex Garland's return to the 28 later zombie saga, and they find new stuff to explore, and they just take wild swings with the zombie film. That just is so refreshing to see out of this director and screenwriter. They haven't lost their touch here. And then I also reviewed Pixar's Elio, which involves an alien abduction with a kid who loves being abducted by aliens because there's more to explore outside of our universe beyond just aliens who want to blow us up or get involved in wars or just eat all of our Reese's Pieces and whatnot. Very intelligent and heartfelt film, and an original film from Pixar, which just offers up a world that it's fun to just explore and get lost within. So you can't go wrong with either of the 2 films I reviewed here. So if you like to see a very refreshing zombie film, 28 Years Later should satisfy that urge. And if you're looking for something with the family, Elio is a good choice as well. So a very good weekend to go see movies. All right. So if you liked this, like these reviews, and want to catch up on the latest films, be sure to, you can read my reviews over on movieswithmark.bsky.social, but be sure to like this video so that others know about these films, and subscribe so that you can stay up to date on latest movies. Go to my Patreon. I'm writing movie history books. I'm updating it with my latest book on banned movies. When that book is done, all my patrons who subscribe on the $15 tier will get a copy when it's completed. And we're getting there. It's coming along. It's coming along much faster than my book on the history of Saturday morning cartoons, which that was a huge project, but I got through it. This banned movies book is much lighter by comparison, so it won't take as long to finish it. So what do we got coming up in the next few weeks? We're going to be reviewing Megan 2, and I believe after that we've got a few other films coming. I think I might get around to F1. We'll see if we can cover that. But then, of course, like the big one that I'm looking forward to covering will be, of course, Superman. So within the next about 2 weeks or so, I think we'll be reviewing Megan 2 and Superman, as well as probably a few others that I meant. There's always something new on the horizon. So subscribe if you want to stay up to date on the latest films. And in case you're wondering, for the people who liked my Daily Wire and my Critical Drinker video, I am working on some more video essays. I've been writing them for quite a while now. I'm working on one for Chris Gore. There's a bigger one, and that I'm working on for Nerdrotic. I'm trying to it's taking much longer, but that's only because I know people like the Critical Drinker and the Daily Wire videos. But those took a little bit of time to research and write, and I want to make sure that that I'm doing those right. I don't just want to like rush into making like the next one, because then like it's probably going to be like a disappointment if I don't put that much effort into it. So I am putting a lot more effort into them. So if you just stick with me, we'll get much better videos out there, I think. And you might have seen like a pattern here that I kind of do like one big one every month or so, and then there's like smaller video essays in between there. So and originally I was thinking the Chris Gore video might be that, but it's looking like that might be a bigger one as well. So we'll see. It'll all depend on what happens when I finish writing and editing it. So yeah, stick around. Check out my website, movieswithmark.com, to read written reviews of 28 Years Later and Elio, as well as my other essays and reviews there. So yeah, until next time, we'll review Megan 2.0 and Superman. Until next time, have a good one, everybody.